Hello, everybody. My name is Lizeth Lagunes, and this is my week 4 presentation. Today, I will be discussing a public employee union, who they represent, what region, and how they have been impacted since the court ruling of Janus versus the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. Let's get started. The union that I decided to focus on is the Service Employees International Union, otherwise known and what I will refer to as SEIO throughout the presentation. I'll be focusing on the 721 Inland region, although it is an international union. This one focuses obviously on Southern California. Just because that is where I reside, although I am not currently a union member, just because I feel like I'm not educated enough to join one. The union focuses on serving 3 different sections of public service: healthcare, property service, and public service, which is what my research was based on, considering I am a public employee. This section focuses on local and state government workers, so things like public school employees, bus drivers, childcare providers, anything along those lines. Since for years, public employees in the state of California had been forced to pay union dues, and it almost felt as a condition of employment. The U.S. Supreme Court last year ruled that public employees can no longer be required to financially support a labor union against their will in the Janus versus AFS-CME Supreme Court case. A lot has changed for SEIU since the Janus court case. The Service Employees International Union, which is the overall union, lost 94% of their agency fee payers. So while I was researching this, I learned the difference between fee payers, who are just people that pay out of their paycheck without being members. Members are actually partaking in the union, going to meetings, votings, strikes, and those are all different sections. So the SEIU lost about 94% of their agency fee payers just this year. And that is a lot. What I thought seemed like a lot. So that's 5,800 as of April. So a little over a year after the ruling. The SEIU Local 721, which is the Inland region, lost nearly 4,500 non-retired members. So people that are still actively public service workers. But it was really interesting to see that is only a 0.3% drop. So nothing really that crazy. The reports are actually still really not clear about the impact that Janus has had on the financial aspect, because this year they reported an 8.6 million gain in revenue, but it seems that it is because of lagging funds. So a lot of those were funds that were coming in from 2017 that were reported in 2018. So I guess to see the financial impact, it'll take a little bit longer. So we'll see, because there was a 4.2 million drop in revenue from fees and dues. So we'll just have to wait and see. Outside of funds being taken in the public sector unions, they also were paying out a lot in like lawsuits for people seeking refunds and challenging like the union power to represent non-members. So there was that. The peer-reviewed article that I decided to go with this week is called "Are Unions a Constitutional Anomaly?" And the article discusses unions both in the public and private sector. I'll focus on the public sector. And one of the most important things that I was able to take away from the journal was that unions are definitely seen as associations with constitutional entitlement to freedom of expression, and the biggest argument is that they should also be voluntary in order to set them back or apart from statutory scheme, which is viable, I think. The article does not open up about the Janus case, but it does touch on the Frederick versus California Teachers Association case and how the right to refrain from engaging in union is viable, and how it is up to the members of the unions to set expectations that they have if they partake, which I completely agree with after all of this research. The article also discusses the monopolistic ways of the unions and how that allows them to gain power and privilege quickly. And I did notice that when I was researching unions locally, that it seemed like only a certain amount of them were really out there. So, able to find the law that ended union rights for most public workers still provokes strong feelings. A story by Sean Johnson, which discusses the Wisconsin Act 10 bill from 2011. And before reading this article, I knew that Act 10 had been controversial because it dealt with a budget deficit by affecting areas of like compensation, retirement, healthcare, and sick leave, like everything in the public sector. What I did not know was that there were huge protests that 7 years after, which is now, it went into effect. People continue to fight for it, and just they want it repealed so badly. I honestly did not know that it was that controversial. I, through the article, noticed that it is very scary. A very scary divide of people who believe that unions just have too much power and that they just push legislation to only benefit them, and there's more need for helping everyone in the state. I think that this story is important, and it relates to this week's material because it gives more of an in-depth view of what is really happening with labor unions and how each state has to focus on the needs of the employees and just simply give each employee the opportunity to either join a union or not, as well as maintaining regulations that do not allow unions to become more powerful than the people of the state. They should not be like able to coerce politicians to pass laws in their favor, which don't really help an entire group of people in the state. So that is my presentation for this week, and I will see you guys next week.